The front smelled of rot and burnt powder. The air was thick with the stink of mud, blood, and smoke that clung to everything like a curse. When I stepped off the train, the ground itself trembled with distant artillery. This wasn't war as ID imagined it. There was no glory, no banners, just endless grey trenches and the dull faces of men who had already seen too much. They put me in the 17th Mechanized Corps. That's where I met Tomasz, Marlon, and Captain Roderick. Tomasz was impossible to ignore, broad-shouldered, loud, always cracking jokes even when we were knee-deep in mud. "Don't look so grim, Veyron," he told me that first night as we huddled by a smoking brazier. "We're not dead yet. That's worth a drink, isn't it?" Marlon was the opposite, quiet, sharp-eyed, the only medic in our unit who seemed to actually care whether we lived. Her hands were steady even when artillery shook the ground. She didn't speak much, but when she did, every word carried weight. And then there was Captain Roderick, our commanding officer. A tall man with cold eyes, the kind who measured soldiers not by their names but by how long they'd last in combat. Our first mission was to escort a supply train to an outpost near the front. It sounded simple enough. It wasn't. Halfway there, the enemy hit us, ambush from the tree line, rifles cracking, bullets whining past my head. I dove behind a crate, heart pounding, hands shaking as I tried to chamber my rifle. The first time I killed a man, I didn't even realize ID fired. He stumbled out from behind a tree, dropped his rifle, and crumpled like a sack. I expected to feel something, triumph, maybe. All I felt was hollow. We made it to the outpost, but not before losing 2 men. Tomasz tried to cheer me up that night. "First one's always the hardest," he said, slapping my shoulder. "After that, you stop thinking about it." But I did think about it. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man's face. The weeks blurred into one another, raids, patrols, skirmishes. War ground us down. Then came the night we raided an enemy village. We'd been told it was a supply hub, that the civilians were enemy collaborators. Our orders were clear: burn the storehouses, capture anyone who resisted. But when we arrived, it wasn't soldiers waiting for us, it was families. Women, children, old men. Their eyes were wide with terror as we stormed in with rifles raised. Captain Roderick barked the order to round them up. I froze. My finger hovered over the trigger. Marlon stepped in front of me, voice low. "Don't do it, Elias," she whispered. "If you start shooting now, you won't ever stop." For the first time since ID joined, I defied an order. I let them go. I don't know how many of them lived, but it felt like the first thing ID done that mattered. The price came later. A week after that raid, everything went wrong. We were sent to defend a ridge against an enemy push. The shelling started at dawn, and by midday, the ridge was a slaughterhouse. Men screamed as shrapnel tore them apart. Smoke choked the sky. I fought like a madman, firing until my rifle clicked empty. Tomasz was beside me the whole time, laughing like he wasn't afraid to die. Then a shell landed behind us. When the dust cleared, Tomasz was gone, what was left of him barely recognizable. Something inside me cracked that day. When night finally fell, half our squad was dead. The survivors sat in silence, staring at nothing. Marlon was the one who finally. The days stretched long and cruel, bleeding into each other like smeared grease on a metal panel. I've learned to read the sounds of war, the distant thump of artillery, the sharp crack of rifles, the low growl of engines pushing through mud and blood. My hands are always busy, repairing what the enemy or the chaos breaks. But the weight on my chest grows heavier with every passing mission. Yuri, ever the optimist, tries to keep spirits alive. One day, "Well, look back at this and laugh," he says, though the laughter sounds hollow in his voice. He's still firing his rifle with that reckless grin, but I see the flicker of something darker in his eyes after each firefight. Our sergeant, Mikhail, carries the scars of many battles. He's tough and pragmatic, but I catch moments when his facade cracks, when he quietly shakes his head at the cost we pay for orders from distant commanders who never see the mud and blood. Then there's Anya, the medic who moves like a shadow through the trenches. She carries her own pain, and sometimes I catch her staring at the horizon, lost in memories she won't share. One night, we're ordered on a sabotage mission behind enemy lines. The plan is simple: disable a supply convoy by any means necessary. I rig explosives onto an old truck we captured, my fingers trembling slightly. Yuri watches me, eyes bright but serious. Be careful, Lyosha. The night is black and silent except for the rustle of leaves and distant gunfire. We wait, hearts pounding. When the convoy appears, we strike, fire and chaos erupt. In the chaos, a sudden explosion throws me against a tree. When I come to, I see Yuri on the ground, blood seeping from a wound in his side. His grin is gone, replaced by pain and confusion. Stay with me, Yuri. I shout, pressing my hands to his wound, but the blood won't stop. He looks at me, eyes heavy, and whispers, It's not your fault, Alexei. Yuri dies there, and something inside me fractures. I blame myself for not fixing that truck sooner, for not being stronger, for surviving when he did not. Mikhail's voice cuts through my storm of guilt. This war doesn't forgive mistakes. The betrayal doesn't come just from the enemy. Bad intel, greedy officers who gamble with our lives, the cold commands that send us to die without care. I realize I'm no longer just a mechanic or a soldier. I'm a man caught between rage and despair, fighting to hold on to what little humanity remains. The war digs deeper into us. Every day the mud feels thicker, the nights colder, and the sounds of battle closer than ever. I'm no longer just the mechanic who keeps the trucks alive, I'm part of the fight. Mikhail is wounded in the last skirmish, a bullet tearing through his side. Suddenly, I find myself leading the squad, something I never expected, never wanted. The weight of command sits heavy on my shoulders, heavier than any engine I've ever fixed. We are tasked with holding a key bridge, our last line before the enemy floods through the valley. The sky is heavy with smoke and ash as the enemy's artillery rumbles like a beast awakening. Our weapons are scarce, our men fewer each day. I patch the tanks as fast as I can, my hands slick with oil and grime, trying to give us an edge. But machines are just machines. They don't fight. People do, and people are breaking. One night, orders come down from high command, a suicidal counterattack to retake lost ground. The plan is madness, and every man knows it. Mikhail, weak but defiant, looks at me and says, "You decide, Alexei. Do what's right." I can feel the squad's eyes on me. Follow orders and send them to death, or disobey and risk court-martial. The choice shatters me. I decide to lead a retreat, saving what's left of the men rather than sacrificing them for a meaningless victory. Bullets tear the air as we pull back through shattered fields and burned forests. We're branded deserters. But those men owe me their lives. The war ends in ruin. I return to my workshop, now just a pile of rubble. I sit by a broken engine, hands shaking. Machines I could always fix. People. Never. The war is a shadow that refuses to leave, even when the guns fall silent. After that final retreat, the world outside feels hollow, broken like the machines I once fixed. The army brands me a traitor, but in their eyes, I'm just a mechanic who refused to become a killer. In mine, I'm a man trying to find a sliver of hope in the wreckage. The village where I grew up is scarred by war. Houses burned, fields trampled, faces changed by loss. I return to the ruins of my workshop, where rusted tools lie tangled with shards of glass and splintered wood. The silence presses down like a heavy weight. I sit on the cracked concrete floor, my hands tracing the broken engine I once loved. The metal is cold, unyielding, like the memories I can't escape. Yuri's laughter echoes in my mind, the reckless hope we shared before the war swallowed us whole. I visit his grave under a gray sky, placing a wrench I found among the rubble. Did I do the right thing? I whisper. The answer is lost among the whispers of wind and the ghosts of war. I survived, but part of me stayed behind, trapped in the endless echo of gunfire, the stench of smoke, and the cold touch of metal. Days stretch into weeks, and the war's scars settle into the earth, and into me. I wander the ruins of the village, watching how the people rebuild what the fighting tore apart. Mothers carry children past shattered windows, and old men sit quietly by broken fences, eyes glazed with memories they don't speak aloud. I try to fix what I can: broken farm machines, a battered cart, even an old tractor with a seized engine. My hands remember how to bring metal back to life, but nothing feels the same. One afternoon, Anya appears at the workshop's edge. She's changed, quieter, but her eyes still hold that fierce spark beneath the exhaustion. She carries a small bundle, medicine and food for those too weak to leave their homes. "We all carry wounds," she says softly. "Not all of them show." I nod, the weight of my choices pressing down harder than ever. We sit among the ruins, sharing stories of survival and loss. The war tested us all, tore us apart in different ways, but it also left behind a strange kind of strength, a fragile hope to keep moving forward. As dusk falls, I realize that the machines I once loved were never just machines. They were part of a life I fought to protect, even when I doubted myself. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to keep going. Spring comes slowly to the ruined town. Snow melts into muddy rivers that run through the streets, carrying away ash and fragments of the past. I spend my days repairing whatever can still be saved: tractors, carts, even rusted bicycles. People bring me broken things because fixing is all I've ever known. My hands move on their own, steady and sure, as if they remember a world before the war. One morning, I walk to the small graveyard on the hill. Yuri's grave is there, marked only by a wooden cross. I kneel in the damp grass, placing a wrench beside the marker, the same kind we used to steal from each other as boys. "I'm still here, Yuri," I whisper. But I don't know if that makes me lucky or cursed. The wind answers with silence. Behind me, Anya stands quietly, a scarf pulled around her face. She doesn't speak, she just lays a hand on my shoulder, warm and steady. For a moment, I let myself believe there's a future waiting for us, even if it's built from ruins. As we walk back down the hill, I glance at my hands, scarred, calloused, still stained faintly with oil. Once, they brought life to machines. Later, they took lives I can never bring back. I survived, but survival is not victory. It is only a chance to keep going, one broken piece at a time. The war will never truly leave me. But maybe, just maybe, there's still something worth fixing in this world.